Picture this. The air in the corridor is thick with the scent of jasmine and fear. You are a guardian, a ghost, a man made less than a man to be more than a guard. Your shadow stretches long against the polished marble, a silent testament to the secrets you keep. The faint sound of a woman's laughter, like wind chimes, drifts from behind a heavy, inlaid door. But you also hear the whisper of a plot, a venomous secret that could topple an empire. The journey into this gilded cage began not with a choice, but with a brutal severance from the world of men. Imagine a boy, no older than 9, his name still his own, playing under the unforgiving sun of the Ethiopian highlands. He is snatched not by monsters from a child's nightmare, but by men with ordinary faces and cold, calculating eyes. These are the system's enforcers, the first link in a chain of complicity that stretches all the way to the Sultan's silken bedsheets. The boy, let us call him Dawood, is herded with others, a flock of terrified children whose value is measured in their potential for absolute loyalty, a loyalty to be carved into their very flesh. The journey north is a blur of dust, thirst, and the hollow dread that settles in a child's stomach like a stone. They are taught to forget their families, their languages, their gods. The process is systematic, a psychological erasure designed to create a blank slate upon which the palace will write its own dark script. But the true horror, the moment that cleaves a life in two, awaits them in a squalid courtyard in Cairo or Alexandria. Here, the complicit enforcers take on the guise of physicians, their tools not for healing but for mutilation. Can you imagine the psychological torture? The boy is held down, the air stolen from his lungs by a scream that has no sound. The surgeon's knife is not just a blade, it is an instrument of state policy, a tool of perverted ingenuity designed to create the perfect servant, a man who can guard 1,000 women without desiring one, a man whose only ambition, whose only hope for a future, is tied inextricably to the master who unmade him. The pain is a white-hot sun that explodes behind his eyes, but it is the cold that follows that truly terrifies, a coldness that seeps into his bones and will never leave. He survives, as many do not. The wound will heal, leaving a scar that is both a badge of honor and a mark of eternal shame. He is no longer Dawood. He is an it, a thing, a black eunuch, destined for the heart of the Ottoman Empire, the Topkapi Palace. His old life is a ghost, a half-remembered dream, and his new life is a waking nightmare from which there is no escape. He has become a guardian of the concubines, a living key to a lock of flesh and blood, his own humanity the price of admission. The system has succeeded. It has taken a boy and forged a tool, a guardian whose loyalty is guaranteed by the very act that destroyed him. He is now ready to enter the Seraglio, the house of Felicity, a place whose name is the cruelest of ironies. Dawood's arrival at the Topkapi Palace is not an entrance into a home, but an absorption into a machine. The palace is a city within a city, a labyrinth of courtyards, corridors, and gilded cages, all humming with the silent, deadly currents of power. His first impression is one of overwhelming scale and suffocating silence. The silence is the most unnerving part. It is not the silence of peace, but the silence of 1,000 unspeakable secrets, of ambitions held in check by the constant threat of the bowstring or the poisoned cup. He is assigned to the corps of black eunuchs, the guardians of the imperial harem, a world within a world ruled by its own brutal logic. His training is relentless, a continuation of the psychological erasure that began the day he was taken. He learns the intricate etiquette of the court, a language of gestures and glances where a single misstep can mean death. He learns to walk without making a sound, to be present but invisible, a shadow that sees all and says nothing. The older eunuchs, the veterans of this silent war, are his new masters. They are the ultimate expression of the system, men whose own trauma has been weaponized, turned into a tool for controlling others. They are both his jailers and his only family, their faces masks of impassive cruelty that hide their own brokenness. The figure of the Sultan, the dysfunctional tyrant at the center of this web, is a constant, oppressive presence. Dawood may not see him for months, but his power is absolute, his paranoia a miasma that infects every corner of the harem. The Sultan is not just a man, he is a god, and the eunuchs are his priests, enforcing his divine and often depraved will. Dawood learns that the harem is not a place of idle pleasure, as the lurid tales in the West would have it. It is a political institution, a breeding ground for future sultans, and a battlefield where the fates of empires are decided. The women, the concubines, are not just objects of the sultan's desire, they are players in a deadly game, and the eunuchs are the gamekeepers. They are the only men allowed to move freely in this female world, and this proximity gives them a unique and dangerous power. They are the eyes and ears of the sultan, but they are also the confidants, the messengers, and the secret keepers of the concubines. This is the central paradox of their existence. They are utterly powerless, yet they hold the keys to immense power. They are slaves who can make or break queens. Dawood learns to navigate this treacherous landscape, his face becoming as impassive as his master's. He learns to read the subtle shifts in a woman's expression, to understand the meaning of a whispered word, to sense the formation of an alliance or the beginnings of a plot. He is no longer a boy, not yet a man, but something other, something forged in the crucible of the harem. He is becoming one of the complicit system enforcers, his survival dependent on his willingness to perpetuate the very system that unmade him. The years pass in a blur of ritual and routine, the changing of the seasons marked only by the arrival of new girls, their faces masks of terror that mirror his own from a lifetime ago. He sees the helpless victim in each of them, and in seeing them, he is forced to confront the ghost of the boy he once was. But empathy is a luxury he cannot afford. In the silent, gilded corridors of the Topkapi Palace, survival is the only morality. The harem is a hothouse of intrigue, a place where ambition festers in the perfumed air. Here, power is not wielded with armies and swords, but with secrets and whispers. And at the center of this web of conspiracy stand the eunuchs, the silent arbiters of fate. Dawood, now a seasoned guardian, understands this better than anyone. He has learned that information is the most valuable currency in the palace. A misplaced word, a secret meeting, a stolen glance, these are the weapons of the harem, and he is their master. He becomes a confidant to the concubines, a strange, sexless father-confessor to women who are little more than prisoners in a gilded cage. They pour their hopes and fears into his ever-receptive ears, seeing him as a safe harbor in a treacherous sea. They do not understand that he is the sea itself, his currents guided by the gravitational pull of his own ambition and the will of his true masters. The sultan, and more importantly, the sultan's mother, the valid sultan. It is she who is the true ruler of this female domain, a queen spider at the center of a vast and intricate web, and Dawood is her most trusted servant. The narrative quickens one humid summer afternoon. A rumor, poisonous and potent, begins to circulate. A favored concubine, a young Circassian girl with eyes the color of the summer sky, is suspected of infidelity. The charge is absurd, impossible. The harem is a fortress, its walls unbreachable, its guardians incorruptible. And yet, the rumor persists. The sultan, a man whose ego is as fragile as it is vast, is consumed by a paranoid rage. The dysfunctional tyrant, once a distant, abstract threat, is now a very real and present danger. He demands proof, a culprit, a sacrifice. The atmosphere in the harem becomes electric with fear. The women watch each other with suspicious eyes, their friendships curdling into mistrust. The laughter and music that once filled the air are replaced by a tense, suffocating silence. Dawood is tasked with finding the truth, a task that is both a great honor and a potential death sentence. He moves through the harem like a ghost, his eyes missing nothing. He questions the girls, his voice a soft, conspiratorial whisper. He searches their chambers, his hands sifting through silks and jewels, looking for a misplaced letter, a forbidden gift, any sign of a secret life. He is a detective in a case where the crime itself is a phantom, a projection of the sultan's own sexual dysfunction, which has metastasized into a political psychosis. The pressure mounts. The sultan's rages grow more frequent, his threats more explicit. Dawood knows that he cannot fail. But what is the truth? Is the Circassian girl truly innocent, a helpless victim of a rival's malice? Or is there a deeper plot at play? A conspiracy to discredit the valide sultan by tainting one of her favorites. The line between victim and perpetrator blurs. In the harem, innocence is a liability, and guilt is a matter of perspective. Dawood must make a choice. He can expose the plot, if there is one, and risk the wrath of a powerful faction. Or he can sacrifice the girl, offer her up to the Sultan's rage, and restore the fragile peace of the harem. His decision will not be based on justice or morality. It will be a cold, hard calculation of power. He is a product of the system, and the system demands its sacrifices. The fate of the girl with the sky-blue eyes hangs in the balance, a pawn in a game she never asked to play. And Dawood, the unmade man, is the one who will decide her fate. Years of silent service, of unwavering loyalty and ruthless efficiency, do not go unnoticed. Dawood's star rises in the dark firmament of the palace. He ascends through the ranks of the black eunuchs, his influence growing with each passing year. He outlives his mentors, outmaneuvers his rivals, and earns the ultimate prize, the post of Kizlar Aga, the chief black eunuch, the master of the girls. The title is deceptively simple, yet it represents a power that is almost absolute. The Kizlar Aga is the third most powerful official in the Ottoman Empire, after the Grand Vizier and the chief religious dignitary. He is a member of the Imperial Council, his voice carrying weight in matters of state. He controls the vast revenues of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, making him one of the wealthiest men in the empire. He is the master of the Harem, the commander of the black eunuchs, the guardian of the dynasty's future, and he is a slave. A man who owns nothing, not even his own body, yet controls the destinies of thousands. Can you imagine the dizzying paradox of such an existence? Dawood, the boy from the Ethiopian highlands, is now one of the most powerful men in the world. He moves through the palace not as a shadow, but as a king in his own right. Courtiers bow to him, viziers seek his counsel, and foreign ambassadors bribe him for his favor. He is the gatekeeper to the Sultan, the conduit through which all information flows. His apartments in the palace are as opulent as the Sultan's, filled with priceless carpets, silks, and jewels. He has his own servants, his own guards, his own network of spies that extends to every corner of the empire. He has become the ultimate insider, the man who knows all the secrets, the puppet master who pulls the strings of power from the shadows. He oversees the education of the princes, the shehzades, the future rulers of the empire. He arranges their lives, chooses their tutors, and most importantly, controls their access to the world. He is their jailer and their mentor, a figure of both fear and affection. He also orchestrates the marriages of the princesses, forging alliances with powerful pashas and viziers, extending the harem's influence into the very heart of the government. The harem, under his command, is no longer just the Sultan's private domain. It is the shadow government of the Ottoman Empire. The Valide Sultan rules, and he is her Grand Vizier. Together, they navigate the treacherous currents of court politics, their power rooted in their control over the one thing that matters most: the succession. A new sultan can only be born of a concubine, and it is the Kizlar Aga who chooses which concubine will be sent to the sultan's bed. He is the kingmaker, the man who can elevate a slave girl to the status of a queen and her son to the throne of an empire. This is the source of his immense power, and also his greatest vulnerability. For if he chooses wrong, if his chosen candidate fails, his own life is forfeit. His power is a double-edged sword, and he lives every day with its blade pressed against his throat. He is a master of the long game, a chess player who thinks 10 moves ahead. He has survived the purges, the plots, and the paranoia. He has become the system, the ultimate enforcer, his own humanity, a distant memory, a sacrifice laid on the altar of power. The reign of Sultan Ibrahim, known to history as Ibrahim the Mad, marks the apotheosis of the harem's power and the nadir of the Ottoman Empire's dignity. The dysfunctional tyrant archetype is no longer a subtle, psychological force. It is a raging, public spectacle of depravity and incompetence. Ibrahim is a man broken by a lifetime of imprisonment in the kafes, the gilded cage where princes were kept to prevent them from challenging the reigning sultan. He emerges not as a ruler, but as a man-child, with an insatiable and twisted appetite for pleasure. His obsessions drive the narrative of the court into a grotesque fantasy. He covers the walls of his chambers with sable furs and demands that his concubines be as fat as possible, sending his agents across the empire to find the most obese women imaginable. The harem, under Dawood's careful management, has always been a place of order and discipline. Now it is thrown into chaos. The Sultan's whims become state policy. The treasury is emptied to satisfy his lust for jewels, perfumes, and extravagant parties. The business of government grinds to a halt. The empire is a ship without a captain, drifting towards the rocks of ruin, while the Sultan plays his perverse games in the harem. Dawood, as the Kizlar Aga, is forced to become the enabler of this madness. He must procure the women, the furs, the jewels. He must cater to every grotesque whim, his face an impassive mask that betrays none of the disgust he feels. He is a complicit system enforcer in a system that has gone completely insane. But even as he serves the mad Sultan, he is playing a longer game. He sees the writing on the wall. The empire cannot survive Ibrahim. The Janissaries, the elite infantry of the army, are growing restless. The ulema, the religious establishment, are scandalized. The people are starving. A conspiracy begins to form, its tendrils reaching from the barracks of the Janissaries to the mosques of the city, and, inevitably, into the heart of the harem. The key player is the new Valid Sultan, Turhan Hatice, the mother of the 7-year-old prince, Mehmed. She is young, ambitious, and ruthless. She sees that her son's future, and her own, is threatened by Ibrahim's madness. She needs allies, and she turns to the one man who can make a coup possible, Dawood. The climax accelerates. The conspirators meet in secret, their whispers masked by the nightly sounds of the palace. The plan is audacious. Depose Ibrahim and place the child Mehmed on the throne. It is treason, and if they fail, the consequences will be unimaginable. Dawood is the linchpin. He controls the palace guard. He can secure the harem, protect the young prince, and isolate the Sultan. The moment comes. The Janissaries march on the palace. The city holds its breath. Inside the harem, Dawood moves with cold, decisive speed. He places his most trusted eunuchs at every door. He secures the prince, hiding him away. Then, he confronts Ibrahim. The scene is one of high drama. The mad Sultan, cornered and terrified, rages and pleads. He cannot comprehend that his own creatures, the slaves he thought he owned, are turning against him. Dawood is unmoved. He has seen too much, sacrificed too much, to be swayed by the pleas of a broken man. He is the instrument of the system's self-correction. The coup is swift and brutal. Ibrahim is deposed and, 10 days later, strangled by the executioner on the orders of the new regime. The 7-year-old Mehmed IV is placed on the throne. The harem has once again chosen the Sultan, and Dawood, the Kizlar Aga, the slave from Ethiopia, has been the kingmaker. He has saved the empire from a madman, but in doing so, he has committed the ultimate sin. He has laid hands on the shadow of God on earth. It is a victory that feels chillingly like a defeat. The years that follow the deposition of Ibrahim the Mad are a golden age for Dawood. With a child sultan on the throne and his ally, Turhan Sultan, ruling as regent, his power is absolute. He is no longer just the Kizlar Aga. He is the de facto ruler of the Ottoman Empire. The Grand Viziers come and go, but he remains, a permanent fixture in the shifting landscape of power. He amasses a fortune that rivals the Sultan's own, his wealth a testament to his unrivaled influence. He builds mosques, fountains, and libraries, his name inscribed on stone across the capital, a slave's attempt at immortality. But the power is a hollow thing, a gilded cage that is even more confining than the harem itself. He is a prisoner of his own success, his life, a constant, vigilant watch against the rivals who covet his position. He sleeps with a dagger under his pillow and trusts no one. The ghosts of his past are his only constant companions. The ghost of the boy he was, the ghost of the man he might have been, the ghosts of the countless men and women he has sacrificed on the altar of his ambition. He is an old man now, his body stooped, his face a roadmap of his long and brutal life. The fire of ambition that once burned so brightly in his eyes has cooled to a dull ember. He walks the corridors of the harem, the same corridors he has walked for over 50 years, and sees not the vibrant, dangerous world of his youth, but a museum of his own memories. He sees the face of the young Circassian girl he condemned to save himself, He hears the mad ramblings of Sultan Ibrahim. He feels the phantom weight of the bowstring that strangled him. The harem itself is changing. The world outside the palace walls is changing. The old certainties are crumbling. The empire is beset by enemies from without and decay from within. The age of the great sultans is over, and with it, the age of the great Kizlar Agas. Dawood's power, once so absolute, begins to wane. A new Grand Vizier, a man from the provinces with no ties to the palace factions, consolidates power. The influence of the harem is curtailed. The government is professionalized, rationalized. There is no place in this new world for the shadow politics of the seraglio. Dawood, the master of the old game, finds himself outmaneuvered. He is a relic, a creature of a bygone era. His wealth is confiscated, his titles stripped away, his power reduced to a ceremonial shell. He is not executed. A man who knows as many secrets as he does is too dangerous to kill. Instead, he is exiled, sent to the same sun-scorched land of Egypt where his life was cleaved in two so many decades ago. The exile is the final, cruelest irony. He is sent back to the beginning, to the place where he was unmade, to live out his final days as a forgotten man. The system that created him, the system he served and mastered, has, in the end, consumed him. Dawood's exile in Egypt is a long, slow fade into obscurity. He lives in a modest house in Cairo, a city that is both alien and hauntingly familiar. The sounds, the smells, the oppressive heat, they are the same sensations that accompanied his brutal transformation from boy to eunuch. He is a ghost in a city of ghosts, his days spent in quiet, somber reflection. The vast, complex world of the Topkapi Palace, with its intricate plots and deadly games, seems like a dream, a story that happened to someone else. He is no longer the Kizlar Aga, the master of 1,000 secrets. He is just an old man waiting to die. He has no family, no friends, no one who remembers the man he was or the power he wielded. His only companions are the memories that haunt his waking hours and torment his sleep. He remembers the faces of the young boys he saw arrive at the palace, their eyes wide with the same terror he once felt. He remembers the women he controlled, their lives and bodies pawns in his games of power. He remembers the blood on his hands, the betrayals he orchestrated, the lives he destroyed to secure his own. Was it worth it? The question hangs in the dusty air of his small room. The power, the wealth, the influence. What did it all mean? He had been a king in all but name, yet he could never have a son to carry on his legacy. He had lived in the heart of a world of women, yet he could never know the love of one. He had been the guardian of a dynasty, but he had no lineage of his own. His life has been a grand, tragic paradox, a testament to the perverted logic of the system that created him. He had gained the world, but at the cost of his own soul. The news from the capital, when it reaches him, is like a dispatch from another world. The empire continues its slow, inexorable decline. The power of the harem is a shadow of its former self. The age of the great Valide sultans and their all-powerful Kizlar Agas is over. The world has moved on, leaving him behind. He dies, as he lived, alone. A servant finds him one morning, his body cold and still, his face frozen in an expression of what might be peace, or perhaps profound regret. He is buried in an unmarked grave, his vast fortune absorbed back into the state treasury, his name forgotten by all but a few obscure chroniclers of the era. His life, which had been so central to the history of his time, becomes a mere footnote, a curiosity for future generations. The system he had served so faithfully had no use for him in the end. It had used him, and then it had discarded him, as it had discarded so many others before him. He was just one more victim of a machine that consumed human lives to fuel its own existence. The institution of the harem eunuch did not end with Dawood. It lingered on for another 2 centuries, a ghost of its former self, a relic of a bygone era of Ottoman power. But the world was changing. The ideas of the Enlightenment, of individual liberty and human rights, began to seep into the calcified structures of the Ottoman Empire. The sick man of Europe, as it came to be known, was forced to modernize, to reform, to adapt to a world that no longer had a place for its ancient and brutal traditions. The harem, once the center of political power, became an anachronism, a symbol of the empire's decadence and decay. The sultans of the 19th century, in their attempts to create a modern, westernized state, began to dismantle the structures of the old regime. The janissaries were massacred, the old guilds were broken up, and the power of the religious establishment was curtailed. And, inevitably, the gaze of the reformers fell upon the harem. The institution of slavery was officially abolished. The devshirme, the levy of boys, had ended centuries before. But the trade in eunuchs, supplied primarily from Africa, had continued. Now, this too was outlawed. The core of black eunuchs dwindled. The old palaces were abandoned for new, European-style residences along the Bosphorus. The harem became smaller, more manageable, less of a political institution and more of a family household. The Kizlar Aga, once a figure of immense power, became a mere major domo, a glorified servant who managed the sultan's domestic affairs. The last of the Ottoman eunuchs lived out their days in the decaying splendor of the Topkapi Palace, ghosts haunting the empty rooms where queens had once been made and unmade. They were objects of curiosity, of pity, of a certain morbid fascination. They were the last living link to a world of absolute power, of unimaginable cruelty, and of profound, tragic humanity. When the Ottoman Empire finally collapsed in the aftermath of the First World War, and the new Republic of Turkey was born, the harem was officially dissolved. The last of the concubines were pensioned off or married, the last of the eunuchs sent to live out their days in quiet obscurity. The doors of the Topkapi Palace were thrown open to the public, its secrets exposed to the curious gaze of tourists. The House of Felicity became a museum. What are we to make of this strange and terrible institution? How do we understand the lives of men like Dawood, who were both victims and perpetrators, slaves and masters, powerless and all-powerful? Their story is a dark mirror held up to the nature of power itself. It reveals how power can corrupt, not just the individuals who wield it, but the very systems they inhabit. It shows how institutions, created for a specific purpose, can take on a life of their own, their logic twisting and perverting the humanity of those who serve them. The eunuchs of the Ottoman harem were the ultimate outsiders, men who were denied the most fundamental aspects of a normal life: family, love, children, a future. And yet, from this position of absolute alienation, they were able to rise to the very pinnacle of power. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but also to its capacity for cruelty. They were forced to become masters of a silent, secret world, to navigate the treacherous currents of a court where a single misstep meant death. They were the guardians of the Sultan's bed, but also the guardians of his secrets, and in that knowledge lay their power. Their existence was a paradox, a living embodiment of the contradictions that lay at the heart of the Ottoman Empire, an empire that was both a sophisticated, cosmopolitan civilization and a brutal, despotic regime. The story of the Sultan's eunuchs is not just a lurid tale of sex and power from a distant past. It is a profound and unsettling meditation on the human condition. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of identity, the meaning of freedom, and the price of power. It is a reminder that history is not just a grand narrative of kings and battles, but a collection of individual human stories, stories of suffering, of survival, and of the desperate, often tragic, search for meaning in a world that seems to have none. The silent, shadowy figures of the eunuchs, who for so long guarded the secrets of the harem, have one last secret to reveal to us: the terrible, enduring truth that the most gilded of cages is still a cage, and that the human heart, even when broken and remade, can never be entirely extinguished. The final, somber truth of the Sultan's eunuchs is a story of profound and tragic irony. They were men who were stripped of their own lineage, yet they were tasked with protecting the most important lineage in the empire. They were made into guardians of fertility by an act of profound infertility. Their entire existence was a contradiction, a life built on a foundation of what they had lost. Can you imagine the psychological weight of such an existence? To live every day surrounded by the very things you can never have: love, family, a child to carry your name. To be the ultimate insider, yet to remain forever an outsider. This was the fate of the harem eunuch. They were the system's ultimate victims, their bodies and minds mutilated to serve the needs of the state. And yet, they were also its most effective enforcers. They perpetuated the very system that had destroyed them, their own trauma weaponized to control others. They were both the jailers and the prisoners, their lives a constant, vigilant watch in a gilded cage. The power they wielded was immense, but it was a borrowed power, a reflected glory. It was not their own. It belonged to the Sultan, to the Valide Sultan, to the system. And when the system no longer had a use for them, it discarded them without a second thought. Their story is a cautionary tale about the nature of power. It shows that power that is not rooted in a sense of one's own humanity, in a connection to others, is ultimately a destructive force. It is a power that consumes, that hollows out, that leaves nothing but a shell in its wake. The eunuchs of the Ottoman harem were the hollow men, the guardians of a world that was as empty as their own futures. And yet, in their story, in their silent, suffering witness, there is a strange and terrible beauty. It is the beauty of human resilience, of the ability to survive the unimaginable, to carve out a life, however twisted and compromised, in the most hostile of environments. They were not monsters. They were men, broken and remade, who did what they had to do to survive. Their story is a testament to the dark, complex, and often tragic nature of the human heart. And it is a story that, once heard, is not easily forgotten. The silence of the eunuchs, in the end, speaks louder than any words. It speaks of loss, of suffering, of the terrible human cost of empire, and of the enduring, haunting power of the past.